Hello, everyone, and welcome to my review of this past weekend's box office. So, I'm going to be calling these weekly box office reviews the box office breakdown. And honestly, what a weekend to start it on. I mean, this weekend saw the opening of Avengers Endgame, which it's an epic movie, and it broke multiple box office records. Like that any record that it could have broken, I'm pretty sure it broke. Um, so yeah, um, let's start with Avengers Endgame then. So heading into and over the course of the weekend, Hollywood and the industry experts were wondering if Endgame could even reach $1 billion in a single weekend worldwide. Um, but everyone, both industry experts and fans, audiences, were also wondering if Endgame could conjure up a 300 million domestic debut, um, which would be beating Infinity War's domestic debut last year at 257 million by almost 50 million if it were to reach 300 million. And on Friday, though, it seemed to be a foregone conclusion that Endgame would hit $300 million in the U.S. and that it could go even higher. I think they were saying 315 to 330 at the initial reports, and well, this Marvel blockbuster went a step ahead and conjured up a monstrous 1.2 billion debut at the global box office, just in its first 5 days released globally, um, crushing so many records in the process. And stateside, it made 350 million. I saw a report like an hour ago that said it's now like 357, 358, in that range. Either way, it's breaking Infinity War's domestic debut last year by pretty much $100 million. That is crazy. That is totally crazy. And the 1.2 million debut is also crazy because Infinity War was the biggest worldwide like single weekend debut, and it was at like, I forget what the exact number was, like 600 something million, and this is at 1.2 billion. That is almost doubling the amount of money that Infinity War made in a weekend. That is nuts. Um, it's crazy. So the record-breaking weekend began with a colossal 156.7 million on Friday, which was including the 60 million from Thursday night screenings. Um, and those beat the old records of Star Wars: The Force Awakens, which had a 119.1 million Friday and 500, not 500, 57 million Thursday night opening amount of money. Um, that was set by The Force Awakens from December of 2015, which I think just further proves how Marvel is the new Star Wars of this generation in terms of popularity and fandom and domination at the box office. Complete, total domination. I think if you told me, like, when The Force Awakens came out, that Marvel, like, 3 or 4 years later, would be completely overtaking Star Wars, I wouldn't believe you, because back then Star Wars was just so dominant. But here we are, and it's crazy, these numbers. It is almost unbelievable. So let's just hope, in terms of Star Wars, that um, Episode 9 does good box office business, and along with The Mandalorian, get Star Wars back on track in terms of fandom and popularity. Endgame Saturday was down only 30%, and came in at 109 million, marking the first time in industry history that any day generated over 100 million in sales by itself, with no help from prior day pre-shows added. That is also crazy. God, all of these. There's almost too many records to even keep track of. So Disney estimates a 23% decline on Sunday for Endgame to I'm horrible with numbers, 84.3 million. And Infinity War was down only 16% on its first Sunday a year ago. But Endgame seems to be a little bit more front loaded so far, especially considering everybody doesn't want to get this thing spoiled. I saw it Thursday night, like the earliest reading I possibly could. And when I went to school the next day, there were spoilers everywhere. I'm so glad I went the day before because I would have known everyone and everything that happened. But I won't get into those details here. I have a spoiler review coming soon. It's a long one, lots of notes. Hopefully out soon. I think that should be the next video. That's my priority after I get this out. But yeah, I think it is certainly possible that when the dust clears, the final weekend gross could be even higher. I think like right now, there could be at 360 right now. Who knows? It's crazy. So this puts the film already at number 18 worldwide, ahead of films like Civil War and Aquaman in one weekend alone. It tops both of those movies and other ones, like Captain Marvel and stuff. Their whole total run, Captain Marvel's still in theaters, and we'll get to her, but their whole total run in a single weekend. That is just astonishing. I remember Aquaman reaching $1 billion was such a huge deal, and it's just like one single weekend. And Civil War is a big MCU movie, and this movie just gets its total gross in one weekend. That is nuts. Endgame is also now at number 50 domestically, and I would say look for it to smash 400 million by Wednesday, and probably 500 million on Friday, Saturday, with of course plenty more to go after that. This weekend, the new Avengers Endgame accounted for a massive 90% of the entire box office, destroying all the other films that were in theaters. I feel bad for all of them. Reviews for this movie were absolutely terrific, calling it a wonderful end to a well-loved and beloved storyline, which of course helped the movie with this good word of mouth. And the A+ cinema score showed that fans loved what they got, and it's a good indicator that the movie will have a good drop next weekend and good legs throughout the rest of its run. It really doesn't have much competition for a long time. I think the next serious competition it will get is probably Aladdin, which is also Disney. I'd say Detective Pikachu is also. I don't think it's big enough to really threaten Endgame, but I think it's going to be pretty big, which is exciting. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, an A+ cinema score is almost unheard of. I mean, not many Marvel movies, let alone any movies, get that. Very, very good, and it deserves it. So the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe has now hit 19.9 billion with 22 films across 11 years, and Endgame is within hours, days, whatever, going to put it over 20 billion and probably 21 billion after that, because this thing's gonna make a ton of money. And we'll get into what sort of records it could break in a second. Well, future films look different. Disney already has 8 untitled Marvel films scheduled up to 2022, I think. And Sony launches the next one in this whole universe in a few months with Spider-Man Far From Home this July. So the brand will live on for a long time, even though this is the end game for a lot of characters. This whole franchise and brand will continue. But I think a big question after this is if the MCU will ever be able to reach a high point like this ever again. Or are we looking at the peak of the MCU, and is it all downhill from here? None of the future films that are like announced or rumored so far seem like they could even get close to what Endgame did in its numbers. But whatever they build up to next, the big finale of the whole next 2 or 3 phases, we'll see how it goes. Definitely excited. We had absolutely nothing about Phase 4. We basically just have rumors, which a good amount of rumors, and a lot of them are probably true, but I will have a video on that too. It's really exciting what is next for the MCU. International records were destroyed too, as Endgame surged to a jaw-dropping 859 million over 5 days from all territories except Russia, which opens this Monday, today, or yesterday, depending on when you're watching it or when I upload this. China led the pack, or out of everyone besides the U.S. China and the U.S. are very close in terms of like the amount of money they can give a movie. The U.S. used to be the number one place, like the biggest place where a movie would get its money, but China is really close to us. I think it soon might become the biggest market in the movie industry, which is interesting on how it could possibly change the movies that are made and its appeal to China. But anyway, China led with a new high of 330.5 million over 5 days since its Wednesday debut. Infinity War opened differently with 200 million from Friday to Sunday, and it also released a few weeks after it released in the US. This time, the whole movie was pretty much day and date, besides for Russia, which is an interesting strategy. There's not really any other foreign country releases to look forward to like give the box office a big boost. But other markets, like the UK, made 53.8 million, Korea 47.4 million, Mexico 33.1 million, and Australia 30.8 million. I think all of which were top openings in those countries, which is nuts. The worldwide opening was a mammoth, as I said before, 1.22 billion. And the real question now is if Endgame, I said this before, if Endgame can catch Avatar and its crazy 2.8 billion for the all-time global box office crown. That number before seemed very impossible to reach. It seemed like it was going to be a long time until we saw it broken, especially with movies such as Force Awakens or Infinity War, where the hype was crazy real, and it seemed like everyone was going to see it, and it still only barely made $2 billion, and there was still a whole 800 million more to make in order to just tie with Avatar. It's crazy. I wouldn't have thought that Endgame had 800 million more, like money-wise, viewers than Infinity War, but I think it seems like extremely likely that Endgame could reach this and beat Avatar, which is nuts. But it deserves that number one spot, totally. And thanks to all the intense MCU interest this weekend, Captain Marvel raced back up the charts to number 6. From number 6, it was in number 6 last weekend. It raced all the way up to the number 2 spot in its 8th weekend, with an estimated 8.1 million, dropping only 12%. This shows fans were eager to catch up on the storyline of the franchise and took another turn with Carol Danvers, who was introduced in this film and shows up in Endgame, and she was hinted at the end of Infinity War a year ago as a possible savior in this movie, which won't get into that, but it definitely turned out to be a genius move, as it definitely increased the interest in her movie much more. Plus, those who never got around to seeing Captain Marvel and wanted to watch it before seeing Endgame probably caught up on it. And over the last few weeks, this movie has been playing like a Best Picture Oscar contenders. A few weeks before the actual big Oscar ceremony, people trying to catch up with those nominated films, which is crazy with all these small drops. Goose and Company for Captain Marvel have now grossed a stellar $413.6 million in North America alone, putting the comic book smash at number 25 of the all-time domestic list, passing films such as Wonder Woman, Iron Man 3, Captain America Civil War, and The Hunger Games. Overseas grosses are now at $696.6 million, with the global haul at a great $1.11 billion, which Endgame, like I said before, has already beaten. But for a first film for Captain Marvel, that is great. That is awesome. They should be very proud of that. And it ain't done yet. But as for the other non Marvel films that came out this weekend, crumbling by 72% in its second weekend. The horror film, The Curse of La Llorana, I probably said that wrong, but had no Marvel superheroes in it. I think that sort of shows how dominant the superhero genre still is, but I think horror is also still a very profitable and popular genre in terms of box office and movies. Um, the Warner Brothers thriller grossed an estimated 7.5 million, lifting its sum to 41.3 million, with a global total at a solid 87 million. Considering the film has a low 9 million budget, um, I think it's fair to say that it's totally in the profitability range. It's making a ton of money, which is why people do these low budget horror films, because you don't need to make a lot to be in the profitability range. I think the success of this film shows how successful the whole Conjuring brand and universe is, even though this isn't all that connected to it. I think this really cements the true strength and hold Warner Brothers has over the horror genre right now. With look at all these other films that Warner Brothers made that are horror films that have been crazy successful. All the Conjuring movies, It, all that stuff. Yeah, I, not a good hold, but this film was already profitable within its first weekend, so I don't think it is a huge deal for them. Next, the third superhero film in the box office this week was, which we aren't even going to talk about Hellboy. That thing's like gonzo already. Rip that movie. Very, very bad performance. But Shazam also made it in the top 5 this weekend and collected an estimated 5.5 million, down only 67% from last weekend. Which, it being a superhero movie and Endgame being like the big superhero movie appeal this weekend, I think isn't all that bad. I think it shows how Shazam is a moderate success. But now with Avengers being the big and pretty much only superhero game in town, Shazam won't have very good legs from now on. And his legs weren't like great initially anyway, dropping in the 50s, I think. Nothing extremely awesome. But I'd say it's still a moderate success. It's taken in 131.2 million from North America, 215.2 million from international markets, and then 346 million globally. Universal's Comedy Little took in an estimated 3.4 million, down 59%, for a 35.9 million cum to date. I think the lack of star power in this film really is a big factor for it not getting the attention of audiences and having lower box office numbers, because other similar films such as Night School and Girls Trip did much better, because I think a big factor in that was the stars they had, like Kevin Hart, Queen Latifah, stuff like that, Tiffany Haddish. And the Disney Kid pick, Dumbo, dropped 51%. To an estimated 3.2 million, and making its cumulative 107 million domestic, 327.6 global, and its budget was an estimated 175 million, which isn't exactly great. I don't know why Dumbo cost that much to make. That is not the best business idea. But this film is not even in the profitability range yet, and I do not see it getting there. I don't see it getting another 30 million or so left in it in order to get in the profitability range. I think it needs to be at about like 360 minimum in order to just be profitable, and it's not even at 330 right now. So I think this shows that Disney, when it comes to their live action remakes, should only give the big budgets to movies that are more guaranteed successes, like Beauty and the Beast or The Lion King, and smaller, less popular ones like Dumbo or Wrinkle in Time should have smaller budgets to account for flops like this when they don't make as much money as they should have. And then other horror films that are still in theaters, like besides La Llorana, Pet Sematary and Us, both of them also fell in the 70s, showing horror was not the biggest genre this past weekend. I think it was superhero action stuff. Pet Sematary went down 74%, and Us went down 73%. Totals are 52.6 and 172.9 million respectively, and Us domestically. And Us is on the verge of breaking 250 million worldwide. Both of them are profitable. Paramount should be a little disappointed with Cemetary's numbers, as other Stephen King adaptations have made much more like it. But it's still profitable. And Us is a crazy success because it's almost breaking Get Out's total gross. I don't know if it will. It's close, but I don't know how much it has left in it. It only made 1.1 million this past weekend. It's already crazy into the profitability range, and please go see the movie if you haven't. It is amazing. I love this film. My favorite movie of the year so far. Besides maybe Endgame, I'm gonna need to sit in that for a weekend. But that is this weekend's historical episode of the Box Office Breakdown, where Endgame broke literally all the records that could be broken. Next week we have Long Shot with Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron debuting, and Ugly Dolls as well, which I think are definitely designed for different audiences than Endgame. But Endgame is also a 4-quadrant movie that pretty much appeals to everyone. So I'm not sure how much these movies will do. I don't see either of them being crazy successes, especially Ugly Dolls. I do not think that that's going to go well. Long Shot I'm interested in. Looks good. But Seth Rogen is not always a guaranteed success at the box office, and neither is Charlize Theron. But together in a comedy, I think it could work, and probably doesn't have a huge budget, so not that huge of a deal. But I think the main talk of this upcoming weekend is going to be how much of a drop Endgame has in its second weekend and how much legs it will have, which I think will determine whether or not it will reach Avatar's total worldwide haul and maybe even reach 3 billion, which would be nuts. That's this weekend's box office breakdown. Avengers Endgame spoiler review coming as soon as I can. Okay, thanks for watching.